Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pinstripe Prospects Podcast, episode 12 of season number 2. We're glad you're back with us this week. We hope you're staying safe. We hope you're staying inside. And we're all going to get through this together through this coronavirus pandemic. I'm one of your hosts, Ricky Keeler. Glad you're back with us this week. We have a great interview coming up for you momentarily to talk with former Yankees pitcher and now pitching coach in the Yankees organization, Preston Claiborne. I think you're really going to enjoy that interview. We want to remind you, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Give us a rating. We hope it's 5 stars. But we want to hear from you. What guests you want us to have on, what topics you want us to talk about. We're happy to hear from you. We love to hear your feedback. You can also email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com. I'm pleased to be joined this week by the founder of Pinstripe Prospects, Rob Pimpsner, is here. Rob, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Happy to be here this week. And one of the things that I think we're gonna get right into our interview with Preston. And I think, Rob, before we air the audio of that interview, I think we should just tell our listeners. I think you are really going to enjoy going down memory lane with Preston. I feel like we could have gone for 2 hours with him. It's that good.
Oh, 100%. Like even off air, we had a conversation that was lasting a good 20 minutes. So we could have easily gone a couple hours with him, and you guys will really enjoy this interview, and I hope you do enjoy it because there's a lot of good tidbits in there.
So we're going to get right into it. We're going to have our interview with Preston Claiborne, and we'll react to it on the other side. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation with Preston. And joining us now here on the Pinstripe Prospects Podcast is a former Yankee pitcher that you might remember well, the 17th round pick by the Yankees in the 2010 MiLB first-year player draft at a Tulane University, pitched 2 years with the Yankees in 2013 and 2014. He's appeared in 62 career Major League games, and he's now a pitching coach in the Yankees organization. Please welcome to the podcast, Preston Claiborne. Preston, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I'm doing well.
So my first question for you, really, what has we've all gone through everything here with all this pandemic thing and everything like that. What has this offseason been like for you? As about to get into the pitching coach in the Yankees organization, and now everything that has gone on in the world. How hectic has this been for you?
It's been. I'll say this: like the Yankees are obviously a world-class organization, and we've had such good direction, and we have such good communication amongst not only the player development, but getting communication from, the front office and then formulating a game plan. The people, everyone around us has chipped in so that we can alleviate as much stress and try and, keep somewhat of a normal or create a normal routine for players. And that's what we've done. I mean, we have weekly meetings, not only within the player development department, but the analytics department, and then we're in constant communication with our players, multiple times a week, checking on them, making sure that they're following programs and protocols, and that their training regiments and what they have access to, understanding that they have their own limitations as far as equipment, materials, baseballs, even weighted balls, and then access to parks, because different states had different, restrictions and regulations. So it has been tough, but give credit to everyone in the front office and in the player development department that has, come together so that we can all communicate, with one message, and, then we can disseminate that message amongst the players.
Preston, you mentioned that you've been kind of in contact with your players really a lot throughout the week and throughout this kind of difficult time here. What has the feedback been there? How are they handling it? What exactly are they doing to kind of stay prepared?
So what we did, we had our quarantine time or our downtime in Tampa, where some players had, homes rented somewhere or apartments and condos and Airbnbs, and, others were at our hotels. And then we were spread out amongst, in a very similar fashion. So we were able, and at the time, public areas were still open, so we had access to fields and parks and could get guys, equipment and baseballs. But good thing about baseball is you can practice social distancing, throwing a baseball and long tossing pretty easily. So they're actually getting further apart, which is what they want. So no, it's been good. I mean, obviously everybody's body is different, and everybody's like I said, has different access. So or has different accessibility to materials and things and areas to go to train. And so that's why we are in a constant beat of communication, so that we can come up with recommendations and ideas. But yeah, we individualize throwing programs, training protocols, and it's the feedback on it from the players, albeit, yes, everyone wants to play and, get back to some sense of normalcy. But that's what that's the message that, I think we had to tell guys is like, look, this is essentially an extended off season that you have to prepare for. And when, or that you're preparing to come back for a shortened season. So this time is even more crucial, because once we get back, I mean, we're hitting the ground running and firing on all cylinders. So they better come out with their hair on fire.
Now, you recently, like I said, are about now coaching the Yankees organization. Was coaching something you thought about doing during your playing career? How did you decide that you wanted to be a coach?
So that's, it's been a journey, and it's been experiences, different experiences that I've accumulated over my playing career that got me into this, thought process. And the big one being in 2015, 2013 was healthy, great, and all that. 2014, I had my first shoulder injury with the Yankees and separated my AC joint, missed a bunch of time in 2014. And then 2015, I had another shoulder injury with the Miami Marlins, and I missed that entire year. And when I came back healthy in 2016 with the Giants, I was, one of the elder statesmen on the AA Richmond Flying Squirrels. And so I was fresh out of the big leagues. And so me giving pointers to guys on how to prepare, because I was a reliever, and obviously prospects and relievers and first year players have different schedules and timelines, and everyone has different training protocols. So me being able to give the guys that were with the AA Richmond team, pointers and tips, because I was a big league reliever, and I trained one way the entire time, and then my body started to break down because I was going too hard all the time, and just getting guys to understand and to trust and to know that yes, they've done all the they use the off season to do all the preparation that they can do, and then when they get into the full swing of baseball, and the training protocols have to somewhat slow down a little bit, because your body can't maintain certain aspects of playing 144 or 162 games, trying to throw a baseball 1,000 miles an hour every single pitch, and sleep and travel. So it started off as more of the important things, to prepare your body, for the grind of the season. And then in 2017, when I was with Texas in the bullpen, I had a great group of catchers: Brett Nicholas, Brett Hayes, and Greg Hibbard was my pitching coach, and he allowed me to essentially run the bullpen. I would do scouting reports and advance reports, and we would have meetings as a pitching staff with the 2 catchers because it was my first time in the PCL. And I obviously, you hear horror stories about the PCL and the ball flies and all this other, jazz. And so we basically started having advanced scouting meetings before every series, and gathering information not only as players, and coaches and catchers would give what information they have, and guys would all chime in, and that's how we had this aspect of communication amongst us, because obviously development is development, and you're sitting there in AAA waiting to get called up to the big leagues, but we also want to win because we're competitors. And then 2018 after I got injured again, seems to be a lot of those, huh? There's a trend here, which is essentially why I'm now a coach. But no, in 2018 when I hurt my elbow second game of the season, I was waiting on MRI results, and Cleveland was waiting to, there was a lot of moving parts going on, and they were trying to figure out what I was going to do, whether or not I should stay and have the surgery, stay in Columbus and rehab, or go back to Arizona, go back to Texas. So they wound up letting me go back to Texas, but there was a 2-week span where I was there, and I did the same thing, ran the bullpen, did the scouting reports, watched video because I had nothing else to do. So I was like, well, I'm just going to help out my team and help out my buddies prepare. So, it was, and then next thing you know, like when I was talking with Matt Daly, he asked me what I wanted to do as far as my post-playing career was concerned. And, he, showed me opportunities where I could go into a front office type role, or a pro scouting type role, or even do an interning type role where I get a multifaceted education from many different departments, whether or not it was analytics or pro scouting, or front office, administration, or player development. And I, the competitor in me still wanted to be in pants. And so then, obviously I'll never close the door, on something like that down the line, but I still want to be in pants and around the guys and on the field and coaching. And, again, that's part of the reason why Sam, was gracious enough, why Sam Breen, our director of pitching, was gracious enough to bring me back, because he told me he valued, the fact that I was a Yankee, and preparing guys that came in with, not only my own experiences, but what it's actually like. Being a guy that started within the organization, grinded his way up, and then, you're up and down a few times, and then you establish yourself and dealing with different routines and emotions and injuries. And so that's why Sam, or one of the reasons why Sam wanted to bring me back. And, I completely agree with it. And so far it's been wonderful.
What did being a Yankee mean to you?
Simply put, everything. It's what I hate to be as cliche as, Derek Jeter wanting to, play shortstop for the Yankees. And my story is clearly not as sexy as his, but I remember I've done plenty of interviews with, you guys and 2010 and Meredith Marakovitz and, people on TV. And I'll say the same story as long as I'm alive. As, my dad took me to my first Rangers Yankees game, and, he told me to play like the guys in the pinstripes, the evil empire. They were the epitome of, class and dignity and the aura that surrounds, the New York Yankees. I mean, they're the pinnacle of baseball, and there's, that's what I wanted to do. Obviously, I'm thankful and blessed to have had the opportunities with 5 total clubs, four others than the Yankees, and the Rangers for not only as a player and then getting to the big leagues with the Rangers, but coming back as a faux intern coach. That's what the baseball community is about ultimately. But yeah, coming back to the Yankees, this is home. I said that earlier. This is home for me.
Preston, you don't become a Yankees pitching coach, especially nowadays, without knowing a good amount when it comes to analytics. So when you think about the kind of new wave of analytics kind of really is taking over baseball nowadays, how do you plan on kind of embracing that and kind of using it as a tool for your players?
I would say when we started getting access to, when I was a player, when we started getting access to, what we could actually do with the baseball. And then I guess the first real thing, obviously the Astros had the Edgertronic camera first, but Trevor Bauer was a big influence in my life. In terms of, the science behind pitching and what he was trying to accomplish as a pitcher. And so I started the deep dive also with a former Yankee who is now the assistant pitching coach with Cincinnati, Caleb Cotham. So we were both injured at the same time in 2014. And so we were both rehabbing, and he's kind of the one that introduced me to Driveline, introduced me to Trevor Bauer, introduced me to, what Driveline is trying to accomplish and the purpose of the PlyoCare baseballs and the PlyoCare weighted baseball program. And it's because it's not just about, the analytics of what pitching can do. It's how we can train, how our bodies move biomechanically speaking. And that's why the Yankees have poured, a fortune into the player development program and, research and analysts and biomechanists and just data collection, not only on what we do with the ball, but how our bodies move, and which is probably the most important thing, as we learn from, the whole Mark Pryor situation or Steven Strasburg or, we can break things down now with slow motion video or high frame rate video a lot quicker. We can see how the ball, why does the ball, and, guys like Barton Smith, Alan Nathan on Twitter, guys that are still trying to delve into Meredith Wills, delve into, the physics of baseball. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And obviously, players, if they want access to it, then they have it. I mean, obviously you don't want to overwhelm a player, but you want to coach players into understanding like what we're trying to accomplish and why they could potentially be better and where they need to improve. And that's what I think, we're good at with communication. And that's why, the coaching staff is amazing and the nutrition staff, like it all ties back together. The preparation into going into being a professional athlete. It's not to be cliche, but it's not like the old days where, you could pop a couple greenies and, be okay, back in the 60s and 70s or whatever. Like now it's, sleep and nutrition and, the proper warm up, the proper calisthenics, the proper plyometrics, finding out where, guys' strengths and weaknesses are, and then how to build individual programs to make them the best player that they can possibly be.
So, Preston, take me back to 2013. You get to make your major league debut. You get to relieve Andy Pettitte, who one of the better pitchers in the last 20 years with the Yankees. What do you remember the most about that debut?
Honestly, of all the days, like that's the one I remember the least about. It was awesome because I guess I was lucky because I got called up, and I didn't immediately. I got warmed up the first night. I guess I got I got called up on like May 3rd. And then I actually got hot in the pen and called down to warm me up, but I didn't get in. And then, so that was my first like adrenaline jolt. And then the Saturday I didn't get up and I got to, watch the game and calm the nerves down a little bit more. And then Sunday, I believe it was a Sunday. I can't remember. Yeah, honestly, that's the one day I remember the least about, but I remember warming up, and I was actually quite calm on the day game. I know we were down a couple runs. It was like 6-4 or 4-2 or something like that. And but then after I ran through the gate, and I was looking down at the ground, trotting in, trying not to trip over my shoelaces, and just get to the mound. That was when, like, I was jelly legging pretty well. And then after my first two pitches, and Chris Stewart telling me, kind of giving me the hands down, like, calm down. And I was like, you know what? This is all the same. Like, the plate's still there. My catcher's still doing the exact same thing that my catcher in AAA did with me, telling me to calm down. And I was like, we're good. But yeah, I barely remember, getting through that. It happened so fast, and it was awesome. And I made sure not to look up and look around until after my outing was done, because I was always a hyper focused guy, and especially being a reliever in the bullpen, and you never know, especially as a rookie, you never know when you're going to get in, whether or not it's fire sale. You're the fire sale guy. You come in the first through the ninth. And I pitched in I remember that year I pitched in every single inning from inning 1 to 15.
You were also on the team in 2013 and 2014, which coincidentally are Mariano Rivera's last year and Derek Jeter's last year.
Yeah.
What were those moments like as a teammate, watching the way those two iconic Yankee greats ended being in that clubhouse with them?
Yeah, I mean, and don't forget Andy too. Andy's
too.
Andy's, through his last outing was a CG in Houston, but being around Mariano, he was the one that had the calming effect, and can't say enough great things about him. Treated me with respect and was kind and gracious, and I could always go up to him and talk to him. And the same thing with Derek. I mean, Derek was the ultimate player, but he was also, cool as a cucumber. He was the guy. That's why he was so good with the media. That's why he was so good with kids and his charities and his Turn 2 Foundation and rookies and whatnot. All he wanted to do was win and, have fun. And it was amazing to see the end of both of their, because Derek was rehabbing in 2013, trying to get back, and kept having setbacks. And then he finally had to, just finish out his rehab, and then played his last year in 2014. And then Mariano, I got lucky with that one that, he tore his ACL and it pushed his career back a year. So I don't know. It's lucky, and it's amazing, and it's iconic. And, there was no better time, especially since I grew up with, the core four, as I, so to speak, for this generation, other than Jorge, but I got to see him around in spring training. So it was, I was really blessed,
Kind of bringing it back to the minor league side, you mentioned before the show about how kind of just understanding your body is such a crucial aspect pertaining to baseball and pitchers. So how do you plan on helping your guys kind of have a better understanding of their bodies and how much they can push themselves?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is, like, we've all been, like, I was 21, 22, 23, 24 coming up through the minor leagues. And so obviously you feel really good. You're a young man, and you're, growing into your body. And so you want to do more. And then, we all have this innate desire to want to pitch for the Yankees. And so, and I'm not ever going to try and, pull the reins back on somebody and say, no, do less, but you have to be able to monitor or self-monitor so that you don't overexert yourself to the point of fatigue. And then when we get injured is when, we pitch fatigued, or we try and perform fatigued when our body's not moving correctly. And so that's the message that the entire organization and most organizations are understanding now, with the science behind the body, because the body can't perform if it's not at 100%. Or it can obviously with, many limitations. I mean, you look at Cal Ripken, but, they're outliers. But guys, why it's so important to, prepare and take care of your body in the minor leagues so that you can get to the big leagues. That's all it is preparation for the big leagues. That's how, because you're not going to, we have a singular message, and, the food may get a little bit better, but you're still going to sleep. You're still going to show up and work out, and you're still going to warm up. So we're trying to get guys to establish routines that benefit them the most is how the message gets across. Because everybody's an individual. Some guys, may like to jump rope. I don't know. But some guy, and which is fine. But, understanding their bodies is why it makes it so important, because, when I was in the minor leagues, I, may not have had access to all of these things. Now we do.
You've been in a lot of different places over the course of your career in the minor leagues. Is there, I know there's probably a bunch of ways you go with this question. Do you have your favorite moment from your time in the minors, something that you can always go back to?
When 2011, we won the Florida State League Championship. That was pretty awesome. Or no, it was 2010. It was 2010. I had just gotten drafted. That was a great moment. And then honestly, it was getting called up to AAA from AA when I was with the Yankees. And I remember, I was pitching. That was when we were the Empire State Yankees and we didn't have a home field and whatnot. I remember looking around. I walk in the clubhouse and, I'm looking around at all these salty old vets. And there's Russell Branyan, Jack Cust, Chris Dickerson, Cervelli was there, and John Maine, Manny Del Carmen, just crazy amount of big leaguers, and pretty high. Eduardo Nunez was there, but pretty some high profile guys in that clubhouse. And I'm like, what in the world? And I remember pitching. I tell this story all the time. And I remember pitching my debut in AAA, which was hilarious. And we're playing in Rochester, and we're winning like 13-0 or 9-0. And so some crazy blowout game. And they call down, get me warmed up for the ninth, get the rookie in, get his feet wet, whatever. And I, trot in to get my first inning in AAA, punch the first guy out on 3 pitches. Next guy, I get a first pitch ground ball to second base, and I'm cruising. And I'm like, man, this is easy. And next guy, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, wind up walking in, like pitches barely off. I'm like, damn, those were close pitches. And I thought I threw some good changeups, good sliders, like off. Guy didn't bite. Next guy, same thing. Nibbling, wind up giving up a single, walking a guy. And the next thing you know, I've given up like 4 runs with 2 outs in a blowout game. And catcher comes up, pitching coach comes out there, is telling me to calm down and all this. I'm kind of looking down. And then Russell Branyan runs over from first base. And he's like, hey, man, what's your problem? I was like, what? He goes, get this. He's like, you don't like beer? And I was like, what? He goes, get this last guy out so we can go in and drink some beer. So I was like, oh, okay, Russell. So that was terrifying and intimidating. But Yeah, I got the last guy out, and Russell gave me my first AAA beer, so that was funny.
Did you have a favorite stadium that you like to pitch in?
I would have to say, I mean, going back so pitching in Yankee Stadium obviously was, incredible. Except when I played Boston, I got booed a couple times. That sucked. But I really did. I like pitching in my home park in Texas. When I was playing for the Yankees and I was the hometown kid, I thought that was pretty cool. And Nolan Ryan was in the stands, and I really liked playing in that park, and my family was around. So, but I mean, you can't beat Yankee Stadium running through those doors every day.
One of the things that's been recent in the news in terms of baseball going forward, at least this year, is the shortening of the MLB draft. We don't know the exact length, but it's going to be shorter than what it's been in the past. You were a 17th round pick, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on, because the Yankees took a chance at you with a later pick, a pick that probably won't exist this year. So what do you think when you look at how that might happen, and looking back at your career being a late round pick, what advice would you give to somebody that maybe not taken because the draft is shorter, but still might get a chance to continue their career?
I mean, that's a great point. Yeah, the Yankees did take a chance on me, and I want to thank Damon Oppenheimer and Andy Cannizaro. Andy Cannizaro was a scout that that convinced Damon to draft me. But everybody, and that's the thing is, everybody's got a chance. And half of the NFL, 50% of the NFL is undrafted free agents. You look at Major League Baseball. There's been I don't even know if we've broken the 20,000 player threshold yet. We may have. I thought we were still in the 19s, but 750 kids get drafted every single year, basically. Throughout all organizations, and if not, or no, it's more than that. It's like 2,500, right? Get drafted.
Yeah,
it's somewhere in that range. But that's the important thing, and I guess with the NCAA, I can't so correct me if I'm wrong. Speak to this exactly, but I think their NCAA is allowing for seniors to get another year of eligibility. But that's still, the important part of this preparation. It's gonna be strange, especially for where it's gonna be the strangest is for the high school guys that were supposed to go to college, and the JUCO guys. Then what are they gonna do? But that's the preparation, and luckily, we have such good social media presence. Our kids now have such good social media savvy, I should say, about putting their content on, in the access to data and Rapsodo and Yakkertech technologies. They can put that online so that scouts can see them. I mean, I was with Texas. I mean, we drafted a kid, or we signed a kid that was, putting his bullpen sessions up, and he was throwing 97 and 99, and Robert Stock is another great example. He's throwing on a freaking sand dune in some park in California, wherever it was, into a net throwing 98. And next thing you know, he's in the big leagues. But if you want to accomplish something, and you want to, you have a goal and a dream, the easiest thing I can say is don't let anyone or anything steal your dreams. My dad used to say that to me. And, this coronavirus and this pandemic is a thing, but it still shouldn't stop you from your dream. As long as you're putting in the work, and, I hate to go off on the David Goggins Navy SEAL trek, but, my dad was in the Army, and, I have a huge affinity for our armed services and military and special forces. So that's where I drew a lot of my motivation to keep going, because we all failed. I mean, I remember in the minor leagues, 2011, I think I still have the record for like most consecutive outings where I gave up a home run. You can look that up. It's like I gave up 9 home runs in 8 outings consecutively. Something like that in 2011. Wow. Yeah. So with the pandemic, like that's the thing. We're all going to fail. We're all going to have setbacks. We're all going to have injuries. Don't let anyone or anything steal your dreams. That's, I can't speak to what we're going to do with the draft and how we're gonna go about it. I know our scouting department is working tirelessly on getting players and and doing it in the most efficient way possible. But the Yankees are going to have to play the hand they're dealt by MLB once MLB comes up with a game plan. And I know it's all hands on deck as far as their communication is concerned.
Last question. Thinking back to your career, what is the most memorable piece of advice you ever received from a coach? Is there something one coach told you that stuck with you the most?
I would probably say it was from Greg Hibbard. When I was with Texas as a player, he had such a calming nature about him, and I was a pretty fiery guy. Not only in the minor leagues but in the big leagues, and he said it to me. I had a rough outing one time, and I was beating myself up because I knew I made a mistake and I shouldn't have. And he came over to me, and and he was like, the only thing he said to me, and I was like, "What did you see?" And I was like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "What do I think?" He's like, "I think we get to go out and do it again tomorrow." And then he walked off, and that was it. And I was like, "Well, that was easy." And he's like, "He's 100% right." And like, well, you get to go out and do it again tomorrow. I mean, I know that's it's weird to say right now because we're actually not getting out and get to do it tomorrow, but we will soon.
Preston, thanks again for coming on the show. We really enjoyed it. Best of luck to you. Stay safe, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks for the time. It was great.
Yeah, thanks,
Preston.
I appreciate it. Yeah, see you.
And our special thanks to Preston Claiborne for taking the time to talk to us about his career, about what he's looking forward to doing as a coach. Rob, I know there's so many directions we could go with reacting to this interview. Again, we talked about it going into it. Just the way that he talked about his career, the different people that have influenced him. Definitely, and I love the fact that one of the things that we get into, and you are writing a bunch of articles for the website, pinstripeprospects.com, about the contraction and the MLB draft, and just giving that advice to somebody who might be a late-round pick, I thought was really good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's in the news right now, especially with Major League Baseball, Minor League Baseball resuming their negotiation via teleconference because of the pandemic. It is a lot to digest with what's going on in the world and what's going on in the world of baseball. So he had some really good advice. I really like the stories from AAA Empire State Yankee days and the traveling team. I think that was very entertaining.
Did you just think back to like when you're a minor leaguer then in the early 2010s and you get to go to AAA and you're still with players we know today. And I think that's like the Russell Branians that he mentioned, and like those are familiar names to anybody that's watched baseball. So I enjoyed that part for sure. And people forget he was a big part of those Yankee bullpens, especially in 13 and 14. The Yankees were trying to at least make the playoffs. It didn't happen. But he did play an integral part in a way on those teams.
Oh, yeah. And, he was a very highly thought of relief pitching prospect in the Yankees organization coming up. And it's unfortunate that injuries derailed his career, or else he probably would still be pitching today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think that was also a cool part of the interview, is like hearing how, all right, while he was injured, he's still doing advanced tracking and doing these different things that I think have helped prepare him to be a coach. And that's one of those things, like, yeah, you have adversity, but it might lead to something else, and it led him to discover wanting to be a coach.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was actually very refreshing to see how honest and open he was to talk about injuries and how it's derailed his career and what it led to him and becoming a coach now. And it was a very open and honest conversation that I thought was very interesting, and I think a lot of people got a lot out of it.
So we wanted to make the bulk of this episode the interview with Preston, so we're going to do that. Next week, we're going to dive fully in depth into the whole possible MiLB, MLB contraction issue. It's a big topic. We've touched on a little bit, but we want to make the big emphasis of next week, giving you every detail possible. I know, Rob, you're writing a lot of articles for the site on it, and it hits home because, especially for the two of us that have covered Staten Island. You've covered Staten Island longer than I have, but I have for 3 of the last 4 years, or 3 of the last 5, something like that. And living in the area, I mean, it hits home for people like us that the chance that they might not be a part of the organization going forward.
I mean, this whole contraction really hurts the Yankees more than any other team because the Yankees have more affiliates than any other team. The Yankees have invested more in their minor league system than any other team. And it's just a lot of this stuff is going to really hurt the Yankees, unfortunately. And that's losing 3 of their 9 affiliates if this contraction happens. And no one knows exactly what's going to happen for sure. I mean, Staten Island was originally on that list of 42 teams, but there's been some changes to that over the last few months. So we don't know if Staten Island's still on that list. If not, the plan moving forward in regards to the Dream League or the Prospect League or whatever they're going to call it. There's just a lot of stuff to unpack there that's not public information yet. I've talked to my sources as well as I've read the stories from Baseball America and the Associated Press. And there's just still a lot of information that's just up in the air. The devil's going to be in the details and what's happened. And hopefully by next week we have a much clearer picture because Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball are meeting this week via teleconference to hash out more of the details in the new professional baseball agreement.
And I believe that conference is on Wednesday. So as you're listening to it, the conference could be happening. So we'll definitely find out more detail as the week goes on, and we'll dive into more in-depth next week. Really quickly, the Prospect Madness Championship game took place. You all voted for who was the best Yankee prospect of the last 10 to 15 years. We did our bracket. Rob did a good job putting together the bracket. And Aaron Judge gets the win, 82% to 18% over Gary Sanchez. James was right last week. He predicted it was going to be a blowout, and it was a blowout. So Aaron Judge, the best Yankee prospect of the last 10 to 15 years in your eyes. And Rob, as someone who's covered the system for as long as you have, do you agree with that?
I mean, without a doubt, he's probably the most beloved prospect over the last couple of decades. So it's no surprise there. I mean, there's been others that have had long major league careers like Brett Garner's that weren't as loved and weren't as highly touted. So, but for most part, Judge is very well liked, very loved, and he was a highly touted guy. So it's no surprise.
So as we wrap up the podcast, I know one of the things you wanted to bring up on the show, potentially A-Rod owning the Mets. That would be pretty interesting.
It will be pretty interesting, especially when A-Rod owning the Mets, Jeter owning the Marlins. So that rivalry continues into ownership. And unlike Jeter, there is no bad blood or no hard feelings between the Yankees and A-Rod, surprisingly, with all the trouble A-Rod's been throughout the years. But so maybe this opens the door to a much more beneficial partnership between the two teams where they can more freely trade. And right now there's rarely any trades between the Yankees and the Mets. But with A-Rod in the ownership box, maybe that could change.
Definitely a possibility. In terms of final thoughts this week, one of the things I'll mention is I've been reading the book that we had on Kyle McDaniel 2 weeks ago, Future Value. I highly recommend it. You learn a lot. Trust me, I'm just on the draft portion. I'm learning a lot more than I knew going into the book. And the stories in there are absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, or go back to our interview a couple weeks ago with Kyle McDaniel from ESPN, formerly of Fangraphs, formerly worked for the Atlanta Braves for a time. That you'll definitely enjoy it. So I highly recommend checking out that book. We do want to remind you, of course, you can sign up for our Dugout membership program. With that Dugout membership program, you get scouting reports, player interviews, features, and much more in addition to our free Major League coverage. You can sign up for either $7 a month or $63 a year. You can use the promo code IMissBaseball. Let's face it, we all miss baseball. Promo code IMissBaseball, and you get 30 days free. So give it a shot. I definitely recommend you check it out. We have some great stuff on the website this week. I'm working on an interview I did with James Nelson, who was traded in the Stephen Tarpley deal this offseason to the Yankees. You'll find out how he got traded to the Yankees while he was online at Chick-fil-A. You find out a bunch of different things about James and how he's interacted with facing some of the Yankees prospects when he was in the Florida State League last year. Trust me, I think you'll enjoy that interview as well. And, of course, you'll find we're going to get up the full Preston Claiborne interview as well at some point this week on the website. So you listen to it, and you also get to read a little bit of it as well. So remember, follow us on Twitter at Pinstripe Pros, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to us on iTunes. We prefer a 5-star rating, but please give us your feedback. We really do appreciate it. So listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can email me, rickjkeeler@gmail.com, and we'll be back with you again next week to talk all about the potential MLB and MiLB news and so much more on our 13th episode. So for Rob Pimpsner, our founder here at Pinstripe Prospects, for James O'Connell, normally my co-host, who's not here this week, but he'll be back next week. I'm Ricky Keeler saying have a great week, stay safe, and we'll talk to you again next week.